Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. On this channel, I mostly talk about the Chinese market. I've worked in global equity investment for over 10 years, and for the past 7, I focus on China. But before that, I spent 2 years covering Japan. Although I shifted focus, I've continued to follow developments in Japan, and I've noticed some striking similarities between China today and Japan in the 1980s. Of course, there are also big differences, which I'll get into later. I didn't live through the 1980s Japan, so what I share is based on what I've read. If you know more, feel free to leave a comment and add to the discussion. Like Japan, China has a more collectivist, stable social structure compared to the US or UK. In Japan, large businesses groups, or zaibatsus in Japanese, help to stabilize the economy, especially during downturns. In China, state-owned enterprises play a similar role by helping maintain employment during tough times. Japan has widespread healthcare and pension coverage. China is moving that direction too, introducing reforms since 2016 to make healthcare more affordable and effective, including regular price renegotiations on drugs, similar to Japan's system. The Chinese healthcare and pension systems are largely a public sector one. This gives the policymakers tremendous power in negotiating terms with every layer of the value chain. Both countries are relatively homogeneous. Japan is mostly Japanese, and China is largely Han Chinese. This makes immigration and population replacement harder, especially as the population ages. Japan was once a global leader in cars, consumer electronics, and semiconductors. China now leads in nearly all types of manufacturing, except for semiconductors. Unsurprisingly, the US is reacting to China today the same way it did to Japan in the 1980s. Issues like overwork or karoshi in Japanese, depression, and student stress are growing in China just as they have in Japan and South Korea. These pressures come from intense education systems and narrow definition of success, which can elevate economic productivity, but can also be depressing on an individual basis. The major differences, firstly, geopolitical standing. After the World War II, Japan lost much of its sovereignty, aligned closely with the US, including letting the US exert strong influence over exchange rates. See the Plaza Accord. This opened up the US market to the Japanese goods. China, however, has remained independent and is unlikely to give up its sovereignty, so it won't enjoy the same access or influence over the US trade policy. Number two, scale and transferability. Japan is much smaller. When its industry matured, production can be moved to the US or Taiwan. On the other hand, China being massive, it's not easy to shift its manufacturing base elsewhere. India is the only comparable country with similar population size. But India faces many other challenges. It is one of the most ethnically diversified countries in the world. And historically, India has invested in a service-focused economy rather than a manufacturing-based ones. Therefore, its infrastructure is far from up to standard to become a manufacturing leader globally. In Japan, the 1980s bubble was driven by both household consumption debt and corporate real estate speculation. In China, real estate investment has mostly come from consumers, and authorities started cracking down the risky consumer lending before 2018. So the situation is different, though still risky. So is China repeating Japan's path? China has learned a lot from Japan's rise and fall, and it has adopted strategies that improve its global competitiveness and social stability while trying to avoid major structural pitfalls. But some risks are hard to avoid, especially under the global trade model that worked from World War II until recently. The model is now changing, so many countries try to rise today, whether it is China, India, or others, will likely need a different strategy. Thank you very much for watching today. I'll see you the next week. Bye.